Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Fantasy. This is Battlefield 1. In today's video, I'm going to be taking a closer look at all changes, all features, all new content introduced by the They Shall Not Pass DLC and respective accompanying patch, which of course affects all players independent of whether or not they've already bought or still intend to buy the first DLC for Battlefield 1. The video is going to be split essentially in two parts. The first part, we're going to be talking about the DLC content. We're going to be covering it in a relatively brief fashion because of course most of this has already been known and previously discussed in previous videos. The details that we know now that maybe haven't been known previously, I will cover in a little bit more detail to fill you in on those. And the second part of this video is then going to focus, of course, on the more general changes to Battlefield 1 that affect everybody independent of whether or not they own this DLC. Things like changes to the grenade mechanics, change to elite classes or necessarily weapon balance, as well as, of course, the changes to the AA. With that being said, let's get straight into it. We've got a DLC, we've got new maps, no secret there. Two of them are infantry focused, Verdun Heights and Fort de Vaux, and Soissons and Rupture are more armor focused. Now we've also got two new operations with that, correspondingly also one more infantry focused, the other more armor focused, with Verdun Heights and Fort de Vaux making up Devil's Anvil, and Soissons and Rupture making up Beyond Mound, which is the more vehicle focused operation. We've got a new elite class with this DLC, the Trench Raider Elite, which has the ability to heal himself, one-hit melee in close quarter, as well as carry a revolver and 3 grenades, making him not quite as limited as we may have thought for close quarter combat, nevertheless a close quarter specialized elite class. We've got, of course, new tanks, new vehicles in this DLC as well. We've got the assault tank, the Saint-Chamond, which comes in the field, gas, and standoff variant, with the field variant sporting an artillery strike ability, the gas version sporting a number of gas-related abilities for both close quarter and longer ranges, and last but not least, the standoff tank, which has a searchlight ability much like one found on the bomber, instantly spotting and blinding enemies in your vicinity that you are looking at. The new behemoth is a Char 2C. It's also a tank, but it's certainly a big one, and it's one of the more versatile behemoths that we've had up to date. It will obviously only show up on the French DLC themed maps, and there should be a note here, not on all of them, and it's of course more maneuverable than most of the other previous behemoths that we've had. As such, it's a lot more impactful on the game, however, usually doesn't last quite as long because it's quickly taken out by a skilled enemy team. We've got new stationaries, the artillery stationary, which is of course basically a big ass mortar, which is somewhat of a replacement for the behemoth because of course on the infantry focus map we do not have any traditional behemoth. Instead, you're going to be getting a number of elite classes at one point, as well as access to the artillery cannon. This of course applies to conquest game modes as well as the operation game modes, things like Frontlines. This doesn't of course come into play too much. Regarding this new game mode, Frontlines, which I've just mentioned, we can talk a little bit about this here because we haven't had too much detail up to this point on how exactly it's going to play out. First impressions, I can already tell you, and you're going to be seeing today's footage is all from Frontline gameplay, is a very good one. The game mode's great, especially on the infantry focused map. A few points I'd like to mention at this point about Frontiers is that while it's an enjoyable game mode, there's certainly areas that DICE still needs to address, to fix. On a number of maps, the necessary distances between the conquest capture points, if you so will, are too large and usually result in a complete stalemate. Furthermore, there's currently no time limitation on the actual game mode, at least as far as I could tell, which means that after 84 minutes of playing on Soissons, there truly being no more cover left, and my motivation to keep playing the game, I basically decided to just give up and let the enemy team take the necessary objectives. So DICE should maybe think about maybe introducing a time limit to a game if there's no clear victor within the first half an hour, 3/4 of an hour, at worst case scenario, hour. Another thing I'd like to note about Frontiers, this is a 32-player game mode. I believe the first we've had up to now, so it's somewhere in between the traditional Rush that we've had up to now and the more larger scale Conquest and Operation game modes. Having talked about the new game mode, we of course have to cover the new weapons, and sadly I'm not going to be able to demonstrate those weapons to you in today's video because of course there's small missions or jobs that you essentially have to fulfill to unlock the respective weapons. Now the first weapon that we're going to look at is the RSC 1917. This is of course a single action rifle. It's for the medic class, and it comes in two variants, the factory and the optical. If you want to unlock the factory, you're going to need to do 50 revives and get 50 kills with the 1907 SL Sweeper. You'll then unlock this weapon, which is by the way a 2-shot close quarter kill. Quite an interesting weapon to say the least, but it does have a low fire rate to keep these things balanced. The unlock for the optical variant of this weapon will require you to perform 75 heals, as well as 15 kills with the 8.35 in a single round. This could be one of the more challenging objectives to complete because of course the 8.35 comes only with 5 shots, requiring a 3-shot kill in close quarter. meaning you're gonna have to get your aim on point if you want to unlock the optical variant of this weapon. The Shoshat LMG, which is of course the new support weapon, also has two variants, the low weight and the telescopic. The unlock requirements for the low weight are 50 kills with the Lewis suppressive, as well as 75 resupplies. For the telescopic, you're gonna have to perform 10 mortar kills, as well as 15 kills with the M1909 telescopic in a single round. I'd like to note at this point, by the way, that these challenges or objectives are not accounting for your previous kills. So if you have 10,000 kills with the Lewis gun suppressive already, that's not going to automatically unlock this weapon for you. This counting begins from the point of release of the DLC. You'll be able to, by the way, check your progress in game, of course, in your weapon loadout. Moving on then to the sniper class, the Label Model 1886. This rifle, the sniper rifle, of course, comes once more in two variants, the infantry and sniper variant, with the infantry variant requiring 50 kills with the M95 infantry to unlock, as well as 20 flare assists. The sniper variant of this weapon requires you to get 5 headshots in a round with the Russian 1895, as well as 10 periscope spots. Now the Riverol SMG, pardon my French, is going to require you to get 50 kills with the Automatico factory, something I think most players should be able to achieve quite easily. You'll actually see me achieve it in today's video as well. And you're going to also have to kill 20 people with the MP18 optical. The caveat here is that it's going to have to be a headshot kill, which doesn't mean you have to hit a headshot in the process of killing them at a certain point, but the last bullet, the bullet essentially to kill them, has to be a headshot. This is a nuisance. It's tactically speaking also silly, because you're not going to want your last bullet to hit your enemy to be a headshot, but the first or second, because that's of course going to be where you're going to benefit most of the higher damage that you're getting from this. However, if you want to unlock this weapon, that's what you're going to have to do. It's going to take you some time. It'll result likely in some frustrating deaths, but it's definitely doable. Last but not least, then we have the Sjörgen Inertial Factory, the new shotgun for the assault class. This also, once more like the assault SMG, only has one variant, and to unlock it, you're going to have to get 50 kills with the Model 10A slug, as well as 15 kills with the M97 trench gun in a single round. Last but not least, actually, there's an additional weapon that you can unlock for the tanker class, and that is the MLE 1903 Extended. So much like the M1911 Extended, a pistol with an extended magazine. To do this, you're going to have to get 75 kills with the Landship. For those of you who love the MLE pistol, this is of course going to be your next go-to tanker primary. In addition to the new standard weapon, we've also got some new melee weapons, and as to say, we've got 3 new melee weapons, French themed. You're going to unlock them through various ways, as well as 3 new puzzle melee weapons, which are essentially just reskins and don't really have any tactical changes to them. Nevertheless, if you're a big fan of collecting puzzle pieces with the battle pack system, you've now got 3 more weapons that you can unlock through this route. Having then covered all the new content introduced by this patch, by this DLC, let's move on then to the changes to existing content, which of course affects the wider Battlefield 1 player base. Starting off with the changes to grenades. They now auto-regenerate after a certain set amount of time. Depending on which grenade, this is more or less time. In the case of the Frag, Light Anti-Tank, Impact Incendiary Grenade, this is 36 seconds. In the case of Gas, 27. In the case of the Mini Grenades, 24. In the case of the Smoke Grenade, 18 seconds. Furthermore, the Smoke Grenade, Gas Grenade, and Mini Grenade have been increased from a maximum carry capacity of 2 down to 1. If you want to recharge your grenades faster than the certain amount of time that it takes for them to basically magically appear back in your inventory, you can stand next to a ammo crate, which will decrease the amount of time it takes by 3. In other words, if you stand there for 12 seconds, you have a new grenade. If you just stand there for a couple of seconds, it'll essentially make time pass faster on your grenade cooldown. Ammo pouches, as of now, currently do not affect your grenades, which means if you're running around with an ammo pouch, you cannot get back grenades, which means, of course, if you're running around with an ammo pouch or get thrown an ammo pouch, while you will still, of course, get bullets and the various other things, you will no longer be able to acquire grenades. Moving on then from the changes to the amount of grenades you have and how often you have them, to the damage they put out. There's been increases to the explosion times for both the incendiary and impact grenade. Essentially, once they hit the ground, they take longer to actually blow up. Now sadly, this is not for the default frag or for the crossbow of the support class, but it does apply to the incendiary and impact grenade. There's also been a slight damage buff to the mini grenade because of course you now only carry 1. Having talked about grenades, then let's move on to the MG08-15, the elite class LMG. There's been a couple of changes to this. There's been a decrease in horizontal recoil. It's a little bit accurate, a little bit earlier. That's to say, of course, your maximum accuracy is reached 1 shot earlier. And the number of bullets it takes to overheat the gun is now universally, that's across all platforms, set at 67. The M1911 has seen some slight increases to its reload times, and the M1903 experimental has been changed pretty much completely. It's gone from a 5-shot kill to a 4-shot kill all the way out to 16 meters, and has had its fire rate decrease from 450 rounds per minute down to 360. I would like to point out, however, that this gun still massively underperforms in close quarter when compared to most of the medic rifles. Now, there's been a number of minor accuracy improvements to the self-loading rifles, to the medic rifles, generally for the better. We don't have to go into too much detail on those. There's also been a magazine decrease for the M97 Trench by 1. Essentially, that means you've got a few less shells to use. The LMGs have seen a general debuff in their hipfire ability. That means they're less accurate when hipfiring now than they were before. This is by a factor of 0.25. In other words, your hipfire ADS has gone up by 0.25. There's also been some slight accuracy and recoil improvements for the MP18. Should be a little bit easier to control, whereas the changes here are quite minor. The Automatico and Hellriegel have both received nerfs. Again, in the case of the Hellriegel, we're talking about increased horizontal recoil and worse hipfire. In the case of the Automatico, you've generally got more recoil here, as well as increases to the first shot recoil multiplier for all variants except for the factory, which has seen a decrease to help differentiate it from the trench variant. A couple of other side notes that we should mention here is the incendiary tripwires being decreased from 2 ammunition capacity down to 1. The crossbow replenishing time, the grenades that you shoot with your crossbow, used to replenish within 15 seconds automatically. This has been pushed up to 25. There's also been a nerf to AA, mainly to reduce its impact on plane's flight trajectory. The AA should no longer push you down into the ground or into the next obstacle. And apparently there's also been a slight decrease in its damage output. We'll have to see whether or not this was the right move. At least from the point of view of a pilot, the fact that the AA no longer changes your flight trajectory is quite nice, because you can sometimes basically get stun locked by the AA where you just can't control your plane anymore. Last but not least, we've got some quick and small changes to party and party leaders. The party leader can now join games as previously for the entire squad. That is to say, he sends an invite to the entire party. However, if you're just a party member, not party leader, when you join a game, which you still can do, your invite will no longer automatically get sent out to all players. This should reduce the amount of annoying pop-ups during your game because one of your friends in your party has joined another game, which of course freezes you, usually in a position you get shot in. Now, with all those changes being covered, I'd like to know what you think about them, as well as the new DLC content down below in the comments. So if you've been playing some of the new maps, the new game modes, have you already unlocked some of the new guns? Let me know all that down below in the comments as per usual, with of course also your usual video suggestions for Battlefield 1. But with all that being said, I'd like to thank you very much for watching and hope to see you in the next Battlefield 1 video.